Sif's blood. Barely survived that encounter. I'll bring you a new transmission. Vode An.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Vode An. Today we're going to be reviewing Crossfire. I'm gonna pass the reins over to Tidus because he's gonna talk a little bit about the book. But there's an extra person here. My good friend Scott Johnson is joining us today. Special guest. He expressed interest in coming on, so I wanted him on, and he'll probably be on future episodes. So he'll be joining us today to give us his thoughts. So, Tidus, take it away, bud.
All right, brother. Well, folks, we are officially out of week 1 in the Clone Wars. I know it took death in the catacombs, but we finally made it out of week 1. So, where are we now? We're at Crossfire. The book's pretty mediocre, but it does take up the first month of the war, and it ties into the Clone Wars 2002 game. So there's that. We will get into a more detailed review, of course, as a group. But generally speaking, as far as we went from awful week 1 with Death in the Catacombs, total snooze fest, to Galactic Battlegrounds, which was more or less just a description. Interesting stuff, I guess, happens there. Severance Ton is a wasted but interesting character. Now we're at Boba Fett, and then after Boba Fett is Clone Wars 2002, which I guess when we get to time about that more briefly, we can go more depth about that. So let's begin with our thoughts on Crossfire then, my boy Lance and everyone else.
Yeah, I do want to mention that these on the timeline we have little descriptions of like short summaries because me and Ken suck and we don't want to play the games, so we're to kind of compensate to kind of at least we're aware of what happened in those games. Titus put those short stories, little summaries on the timeline, mainly for us, so we know what's going on. We're not really gonna do a review of those games because we haven't played them. But these 3 stories, so the Galactic Battlegrounds, Boba Fett Crossfire, and the Clone Wars 2002 game, this is the Dark Reaper Crisis. This is like the first kind of big event, I guess, or big campaign, you can say. That's not really a good description of it, but sort of the first big event of the Clone Wars, the multimedia project. So, the book sucks, in my opinion, at least. I think I hate it a little bit more than everybody else. Basically, I'll provide a brief rundown. Boba Fett is on Raxus, and of course, he's meeting with Dooku. Jango said that, go to Dooku, he'll give you a bunch of money. And, Boba's still not to sneak out, and he ends up doing it anyway, of course. He's found, and Dooku wants to kill Boba because he snuck out, and because Boba knows Tyrannus is Dooku, which we'll get into that, I'm sure, later. And then the Republic attacks Raxus.
Yeah, he's also snooping around the excavation site for
the
Dark Reaper Force Harvester that's buried on Raxus Prime.
Yeah, that's probably the primary reason Dooku wants to kill him. Anyway, the Republic attacks. Of course, the events of the game are now taking place. Boba is then saved by clones who don't recognize Boba as a clone for some reason. He's taken up to this to an acclimator assault ship, and he befriends this person named, what was his name? Gar? What was that his name? Gar, like Gar Saxon? Gar?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yep. Gar.
Yeah. Gar, they become friends. They end up snooping around the ship, and I guess Boba likes to sneak out and snoop around things. He's done it multiple times now, not just this book, but the last one. What happens afterwards? They're snooping around, they get shot out of the ship, and then they get their way back in. because Boba uses his and the space because they were outside the ship in spacesuits snooping around, and then the ship's about to go into hyperspace. They end up getting detached from the ship, and then Boba uses his air tanks as like rocket boosters. It was weird. And then he ends up getting back to the ship, and then they go into hyperspace to Bespin, where I guess there's like this orphanage there. And meanwhile, Aura Singh finds that ship. She, of course, on the Slave One. Boba and then Aura team up to take out the Jedi or get away from them. And then at the end of the book, Aura Singh says, "Yeah, I know about all these places where Django had his money, and I'm going to take it to him as long as I get 50-50. And you get to keep the Slave One." And that's how the book ends. So, Ken, what are your thoughts? I'm gonna start with you, bud. And
Okay.
I'll go into detail my thoughts last, but Ken, what were your thoughts?
I thought this book had some interesting parts in it, but overall it was very mediocre. Again, the prose of the author isn't very good. Start off by saying that. But I guess I could start with the two things I found interesting. The fact that they're orphans, like the whole book acknowledging that they're orphans in this war. Like we never really see. I mean, I guess we kind of see that in TCW, but like as far as I know, in the Republic comics, we don't see that, or any like the other novels. I haven't read like a lot of them, but just seeing the fact that the Republic is taking on these orphans, that kind of like adds a nice touch to the war, and say like, oh, this war is affecting everyone. Granted, it's the first month. But I still think it shows how chaotic the war is becoming, even after the first month of the war. They're taking on orphans. And the acclimators, the acclimators, I will say, I do love to see hard numbers, like the crew size and like the amount of troops it can carry. I did like that. I'm gonna bookmark that in my mind for future reference. And Boba Fett,
because it's probably gonna get contradicted anyway. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I'm sure maybe something's like, oh, it carries like twice as many troops now.
I mean, the Central Guide to Warfare and Karen Travis do that for you. They retcon it.
I knew that was coming.
Of course they do. I knew they would.
It seems like he got that information straight from like one of the visual dictionaries or something that came out around the time of Attack of the Clones that gave specifications for an acclimator cruiser, though. It seems like it was just cut and paste and inserted right into that book.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just like seeing hard numbers, even though they're going to be contradicted like 2 books later, regardless. But seeing Boba Fett pick up a blaster and actually, I mean, granted, it's like he had no other option, that the clones were his best way off the planet, but seeing, like, knowing that he was, I guess, sure, he's the unmodified clone, but like he would still have, I guess, that training in him, and also being taught by his father, Django. So seeing him pick up a blaster and fight and shoot a bunch of droids was a little fun little scene. But for most of the book, to be honest, all the stuff with the stuff with Gar, I like it. Like, I like seeing, even if it was an act, I like seeing Boba Fett be a kid, as he should be. Like, he's been thrust into this war, like, not of his own accord or own volition. He didn't choose this. Been forced into this. But it's nice to see in moments, even if they're like kind of him putting on an act, even though like he mentally claims it's genuine. I mean, there's 2 sides to that, but I still like this. I like seeing him as a kid. But I kind of felt like it dragged on for a bit too long. It just kind of meandered. I would have liked to spend more time either on Araxis or on Bespin, but the whole middle where them on the acclimator went on for too long for my liking, and the whole scene where them spacewalking out on the acclimator was kind of goofy.
Yeah, those were page fillers. There's a lot of page filling in here.
Definitely not page.
You said what?
Definitely not page turners. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Tidus, what do you think, brother?
I thought it was POOP. You know, poop. It was pure bantha poodoo. You know, and but I'll give it credit. I'll give it one credit. Thus far as we are reading, Attack of the Clones novelization don't count. Even then, I don't think they name them. But actually no. Clone Trooper falls in a hole. I can't even give it full credit. You know what? No, I'll give it release date credit. So release date wise, this is the very first named Clone Trooper. Boom. Well, he's a bunch of fucking numbers, so it don't even matter. So what was his numbers? It was like CT 6519, I think. That's like I think what it was.
Yeah.
He had a slash in his name though.
Yeah,
Like they all do.
yeah. Because back then, before TCW, they all had like a slash in their digits.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Neither
So
did I.
he's CT6/519. So he is the first named, quote unquote, named clone, and then there's CT/Dickhead555. I forgot his name. So that's the novelty of that. We got that one clone that's named. I will piggyback on what Ken's saying. The fight scene where like Boba gets up the DC 1715, I don't really specify what the hell it is. And starts whooping ass with droids, fighting with the 519 guy. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a nice little action scene, despite being poo. I don't really have any thoughts on the book. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. It's just kind of like meandering. Like Ken said, the stuff on the acclimator is way too long. Just a lot of padding. I mean, as they are saying, like just it's page filling. But I will say, because this does mean something to me, is that Aurra Sing is one of my favorite characters. But I think that she is terribly out of character in this book. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think she's a little bit too understanding of Boba. I think Terry Bison leans into her being ruthless and the fact that like she could double cross him at any moment like she did in the first book. But the way I understand Aurra Sing from the Republic comics is that I think she's far too demented to even form like a pseudo relationship with Boba like this. You know, I don't think she doesn't have the mental capacity to do something like that. It's like I've always interpreted her as a character to be completely averse to social interaction. So for her to act like this in a book is just kind of like a head scratcher. It doesn't feel like the same character. She's a little bit too stable.
I can see that. I mean, I don't know much of her character outside of, I guess, these books and TCW, but I guess this kind of aligns with her characterization in TCW, where she basically is like Boba's mentor.
I mean, yeah, because and they basically just make a whole new character out of her in TCW, but it's just like, man, in the comics, she is a crazy bitch. It's like she has just a single-minded desire to kill Jedi. She will take any bounty or opportunity to find a way to kill Jedi. It's like she's a bounty hunter. I guess she does collect bounties, but a lot of it is just like playing off her hatred. So to see her even like put that aside, stow that for one moment, and like be understanding and say like, I respected your father. It's like I don't think Aurra Sing has much respect for anyone in the galaxy aside from herself. Like I think she's too selfish. She's too fucking demented to even feel that. But that's just my opinion, and that's really all I gotta say about the book. I just think she's out of character.
I will add to that. I kind of wish we spent more time with. I know these books are about Boba Fett, but like, that's why I kind of wish the Bespin stuff was longer. We could have spent more time with her and Boba Fett. I just wanted to see more of Aurra Sing, really.
Fair enough. Scott, what's your thoughts, man?
I'm a little bit more positive on this. When you consider a couple of things. One is this is a kid's book, so you wouldn't expect the tie-ins that it does to Galactic Battlegrounds, Clone Campaigns, and the console game, the Clone Wars 2002 for GameCube and PS2. So when you consider that, and you consider the time it's written, like this was one of the first Clone Wars books to come out after Attack of the Clones. I think it's a little bit better. It's exactly like I remembered it. Like it's not better or worse. I read this the first time around the time it came out, and I think some of the references it was like Terry Bisson just got a memo, include this, include the amount of soldiers that are in an acclimator class star cruiser. So it's just kind of forced in there, but I appreciate the continuity. And there are some plot holes, though. I just have in my notes here, at the very end, like when Aura Singh needs Boba and she follows this Republic starship just because he's captured. He was not captured, but he's like an orphan aboard the ship, and they're taking all the orphans to Bespin. She follows like the shadow of the star cruiser and picks him up because she needs the biometrics for the bank account that unlocks Jango's credits. And really, even Boba figures this out at the very end. Like, since he has the same DNA, technically all of the clone troopers' biometrics should be the same. So she could just steal any clone trooper and unlock the bank account. There's obviously the part at the very beginning on Raxus Prime where Boba is caught up in the Republic attack on the Separatist base there. And in the wreckage, the clone troopers find him, but they don't recognize that he kind of looks like them. He's a child version of them. Now, you can argue the fact that Raxus Prime is dirty and, he was unkempt. He's not recognizable, especially because he's half their age, maybe even less than half their age. But it's a glaring plot hole. Like Bisson almost forgets that he's dealing with a clone, and the soldiers should know that he looks the same as them. The Jedi are very stupid, especially the Padawan. Like the Bothan master, Glenn Betty, she kind of knows something's up with Boba Fett. Like, she asks the right questions when she's when they found him. Like, where do you come from? What's your name? What's in the bag? Because obviously he's got Jango's helmet and Jango's book with him. But she gets distracted all of a sudden, and Boba gets away. And then her Padawan just lets them kind of roam around the ship, no problem. It's very similar to one of the TCW episodes. Like, not exactly. Like, they know he's Boba Fett in that episode, but he's kind of like roaming around the ship searching for a way to escape. And the page count is really padded in that middle part of this book here. I think it's 180 pages overall, but really the only action scenes are the Republic attack on Raxus Prime in the very beginning, and then the dogfight at the end between like the Cloud Car and the Jedi Starfighters and the Slave One on Cloud City at the very end. And I like the part with Gar, Boba's little orphan friend there. Like, he seems trustworthy. Unfortunately, like, Boba has to kind of backstab him and kind of run away at the end. But he seems like loyal for what he is. So I like the characterization overall of Boba Fett. Like, he's a sympathetic character. He's the main character of the series. But at the same time, he's kind of a bad guy, or he turns into a villain later on. So he's not trustworthy. He's kind of deceptive in his ways there. And then also at the very beginning, Count Dooku, you have the problem where Dooku's a little bit too suspicious of Boba, and the fact that he might like run off on him because he knows like Dooku is Tyrannus, and that's somehow a big secret. I mean, we could talk about how that may not be as big of a problem as it's kind of made out to be in the series, but it seems like he's paranoid, and he's tied down. Like, they really keep an eye on him when he's on Raxus Prime, and if you contrast that to when he's on the Republic cruiser, he's allowed free reign to kind of do whatever he wants. So it's like the Separatists pay too much attention to him, and then the Republic don't pay enough attention to him. So there's some people that don't really think too big about the risks involved with this having this kid aboard. And some people aren't very smart. Like Boba Fett, when he gets caught, he doesn't have a story ready to tell the Jedi, like why he's there. He's sort of caught off guard. And luckily, something happens to where they're distracted and he gets away, but he gets by off luck rather than cunning will or just playing playing out like over outthinking the Jedi, really. So that's about all I have in the notes here.
Fair enough. I pretty much have this fairly same thoughts as everybody else. The book was really hard for me to read because with the stuff on Araxis, even with some of the problems that's there, I still like it. It's still somewhat enjoyable, especially given all the continuity that it has with the Clone Wars game. But once he gets quote unquote captured, or not even then, once he encounters the clones, the book falls apart for me because I literally sat there asking this question: why don't the clones recognize him? Why don't the Jedi recognize him? The whole time, expecting, well, maybe I'll get an answer. I didn't get an answer. It made no sense to me, and it made the book feels like just one big plot hole.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have it's not, I've tried to roll around every explanation I can think of, and still none of it works. I mean, if he's dirty, oh yeah, but then he gets cleaned up later on, and they still don't recognize him. I mean, and it's
they do use the point
really
where he puts on the helmet and they think he looks like an adult with the helmet, like that sort of disguises him. But what kind of person would think a 10-year-old with a helmet looks like an adult? Like, he's snooping around the excavation site on Raxus Prime, and like one of the workers like offers him a bite of food, thinks he's like part of the excavation team there. And then they decide
a Mandalorian helmet on.
Right.
He's not even wearing like body armor either. He's wearing a fucking helmet.
Right. And then they so it was like Bisson had the idea, well, we'll just have him use the helmet. That way nobody sees him. And then they sort of abandon that idea after he gets captured by the Jedi. Like, he doesn't really use the helmet after that. I mean, he might during the spacewalk, but nobody's really looking at him there. So it kind of falls flat a little bit. So there's some major plot holes there for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you guys something that this is all I could think of when I was reading those scenes. This is what I was imagining. This is from The Mandalorian.
My goodness.
This is literally what he probably looked like, dude.
Probably, yeah, that's accurate.
This is an adult right here, bro.
Yeah, this is an adult human male, like 100%, totally not a child whatsoever.
This
flawless,
is exactly
flawless disguise.
what I was envisioning.
Boba Fett putting all his stats into Sneak like he's a Fallout character.
Oh no, dude. That's what I was envisioning the whole time when reading that scene. But yeah, it was just a lot of it kind of felt like Bison just sat down in like an hour, maybe not an hour, but a day, just and wrote this and didn't really even think about what she was writing. And it's not
Terry Bisson's a he.
Terry Bison's a she, my dude. That's a woman.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
That's a woman, bro. We looked it up the other day.
Okay, if you say so.
Oh, that is a male. What?
Yep.
Tidus, she told me it was a female, dude.
Dude, I thought it was a woman too. Must have been thinking about. You said what?
I'm laughing at you, dude.
Why are you how you laughing at me?
I don't know. I just think it's funny.
You can't be you laughing at yourself, bro. You got the mix up. I was probably thinking about Elizabeth Hand.
I don't know. Either way, he, she, they, whatever. It doesn't matter. Now I got it in my head that Terry Bison's a woman.
Shit, no,
apparently he has quite a reputation as a sci-fi author. So he passed away last
year.
Quite
the shitty reputation so far.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that whole Boba Fett thing is a plot hole.
It just felt like he didn't really think about this. And it's funny because there's a scene in there where where he's like Boba's looking up at the clones like these are all just like my dad, and it's like, but the clones weren't looking at him saying, "Is that us when we were little?" I mean, I don't know. It was just it was really hard to read after that because there was no mention of the fact that that's a clone. So
Suspension of disbelief's a bitch, bro. It's like the book kind of relies on it, where it's like it wants you to believe this shit, but it's so absurd that like even suspending your disbelief does not fucking work correctly.
yep.
It also
But I
goes to
thought
like the whole prose, like over explaining, like what we talked about the last book, where it's like
I
just
don't-
trying to
Go on.
just trying to like over explain things to your audience when like I can kind of figure it out myself.
I don't know,
Yeah.
Ken. Like I feel like in the scenes where it's not like just page filling, I kind of think that the prose is like a little bit better than the first one.
Fair. I will say there's less of like the brackets and like parentheses, which thank God there's less
it's
of
like
that.
way less like reiterating shit that we just fucking read.
Yeah. It's better on that front, but
Yeah.
it's not better by much, I'd say.
To its credit, and I will say this is sort of going back on the first book, but it doesn't assume you watched the first or the second movie, Attack of the Clones. Like you could pick up this series and it tells you everything you need to know about Boba Fett's history, so that you could read this as a standalone series, not knowing anything about Star Wars. So I'm not sure if that's a net like good or bad thing. Obviously, it's good for the people who maybe not familiar with Star Wars, but for a seasoned fan that knows sort of what's going on, they probably most likely skip a lot of the first book, except the very last few chapters. That's
yeah,
new
I think it
information.
just depends on what kind of Star Wars fan you are. So
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we've got for this. Is there any other thoughts someone would like to add on the book?
are we gonna talk about the whole Darth Tyrannus thing and why that doesn't make any sense? Like Boba Fett, like figuring out that they're like him telling like Boba Fett he's Darth Tyrannus.
Yeah, that's a major plot point of this series, that Boba Fett has this knowledge that Dooku is Tyrannus. I think it goes all the way to like book 5 or 6 to get resolved. And I'm not real clear on when the Jedi learned about the name, Darth Tyrannus. The fact that Tyrannus, obviously they learned it from Obi-Wan on Kamino in episode 2, but the fact that Tyrannus was one of the Sith Lords that they're looking for, I don't think that information came out until like Labyrinth of Evil or around that time. I'm not sure it matters. Like Dooku is really paranoid about the Jedi finding out. Obviously, if they did know either he was Tyrannus or his master, or if the Jedi knew like his apprentice was named Tyrannus, that would tip them off about the army that was created on Kamino.
Yeah.
But in terms of the Jedi's perspective, if they and the Republic went to Kamino, as they did in episode 2, took control of that army, from their perspective, they could just see that they foiled the plot against the Republic and the Jedi, because they have the army now, regardless of who created it or why. I mean, assuming that they wanted to take over the galaxy with it, they have it now, and there's no reason to suspect that there's these secret orders implanted within the clone troopers that Darth Sidious has override control of what they do and their orders. So I don't think it's as big of a deal as it's made out to be in the series. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think from like a perspective of Boba Fett has his knowledge, even if he gets captured by the Republic, and like he's just he can just have it as like he can just be like tell them like, oh, this guy is Darth Tyrannus. Like I can use it as leverage, and he can get like a shitload of money from it, I guess. That's my
I
whole
don't know. I'm kind of with Scott, where it's like I don't think Boba Fett knowing that really serves anything. Like it's just kind of like he knows it, but it's like there's no meaningful way that he could like use this shit. I mean, of course, like you could say like like you mentioned, Ken, like monetary gain, but like
yeah, but
at least tying into like the
affect
overarching.
anything.
I mean, yeah, like, at least tying into like the overarching like story of the Clone Wars, it's like this shit does not affect the Jedi anyway. Like Boba Fett's not gonna tell this shit to the damn Jedi.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, he potentially like could be an interesting plot point, but I mean, given it how much he hates the Jedi, he wouldn't do that.
My opinion, wait, we're gonna say, Scott?
I was just going to say, if anything, it rubs Dooku the wrong way. Like, Dooku's worried about it. So if Boba knows that, it's at least to his advantage. Even if it, in actuality, isn't a big deal, Dooku thinks it's a big deal. So Boba can use that to his benefit and use it to his benefit against the Jedi, too, because, I mean, this is kind of spoiling going into the end of the books, but I think he tells the Jedi and he gets an audience with Mace Windu, who he's after because he wants revenge for who killed his father. And that's alluded to throughout the book as well, where he meets these Jedi that are in charge of this Republic cruiser. He's pretty sympathetic to the Padawan who's stupid and just lets him run about the ship. But he doesn't much like the Bothan Jedi, the master. So it's very clear throughout this book that Boba has a hatred and is out for revenge against the Jedi.
I was gonna say that I think, I mean, this is something I've had a lot of conversation with Titus about because obviously, I mean, I've not read much of the Clone Wars stuff, so I know in Disney canon or TCW, I guess, which is both, but I mean, the whole Pike Syndicate thing, I think was it season 6, was it? They find out who he is, and it doesn't really seem like they care.
Yeah.
I mean, Obi-Wan's shocked, but I don't think there were stories going forward that, I don't even think season 7 touched on it. I don't know. I think Scott's explanation probably makes the most sense, but I think the reason why Dooku may still want to keep that a secret is it's kind of like maybe he feels that it could be like a domino effect. They find out who I am, and then they may start prying and looking for
questioning
information.
other things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why Dooku does not want, or he doesn't want the Jedi to know, is to keep maximum secrecy. I think is what it is, and to make the Jedi feel a lot more confident and to trust the clones. Because if they don't trust the clones, then I mean, Order 66 really wouldn't have been as much of a success. So I don't know. I think it makes sense why Dooku would be, very cautious about who knows that.
Mhm.
But I don't know.
Yeah,
Especially now, I mean, I'm sure he knows that Obi-Wan knows who Tyrannus is because Jango revealed it.
Mhm.
I think what they could have done was they could have explained that maybe Dooku, he had put, I don't know, because we know he put a bunch of fake files about Sifo Dyas. I think TCW even says that. So maybe they could have put in there that, an alias or a pseudonym or whatever that Sifo Dyas used, it was Tyrannus. So I don't know.
Right.
I think that would have been kind of interesting, and then that way it would have been, oh, so Jango was just talking about Sifo Dyas. So
There's
don't
all
know.
sorts of possibilities. I mean, there's no reason for Obi-Wan to believe Jango Fett was telling the truth when he revealed the name Tyrannus. So it's possible he just thought he was lying. But that information was probably recorded somewhere within like the Jedi and their investigation. But when you start bringing in the Clone Wars, the TCW elements into this, you have to consider that basically the entire separatist leadership probably knew Dooku's connection to Tyrannus, and a lot of those higher ups like Newt Gunray and that, like, they get captured and probably interrogated in TCW. Right. So depending upon when that happens, I mean, that could be an idea of how that information gets out, like how the Republic and the Jedi know about that. But if it's towards the end of the war, I don't think it's a big issue.
Yeah. I mean, they could have really just thought, because I mean, I guess Jango just saying, "Hey, Tyrannus hired me," Tyrannus could have been anyone. It could have been a separatist. It could have been a not a separatist. So I mean, maybe that's why they didn't, because like you mentioned, Scott, there was a bunch of those separatist leaders who were captured and, of course, freed throughout the war, like Poggle, New Gunray,
Mm-hmm.
you name it. Maybe they just didn't ask them because they didn't think Tyrannus was a separatist. I mean, it's there's a lot of different explanations I think you can give, but
I mean,
Yeah.
Tyrannus could have been in the Senate.
yeah, exactly. For all they knew, I mean, they had no idea who that was, and I think I don't know, because I used to think it was a big problem, but now that y'all are, I'm kind of thinking about it more. It's not really a problem that they know who, or that they know of a Tyrannus. So, if anything, I think TCW creates a huge problem because they establish that the Jedi do know, and they know fairly early. I mean, so I don't know.
Right.
I guess that's a problem for the new canon to figure out. But because we know Titus told me this in Labyrinth of Evil, it is revealed there the Jedi do figure out who that is, who
Mhm.
Tyrannus is. But Titus, do you know if did they ever connect that Tyrannus was a Sith? And if so, when did they do that?
They did that when, because there's a part. This is like the one problem with Labyrinth of Evil, and it's when like Dooku just overshares a bunch of bullshit to Obi-Wan. But I guess like you kind of have to suspend your disbelief and just assume that, well, Obi-Wan thinks Dooku's full of shit because he basically tells who Darth Sidious is. He says, "Yes, I am Tyrannus. I am the apprentice of Sidious." And like he says that, what I'm just saying, he goes on a whole spiel laying out who is who. And I could be very wrong about this, but I think he alludes to Palpatine being Sidious. Or that he at least says that like Tyrannus is the apprentice of Sidious.
Right.
So I don't know, like it's a weird part of the book. He just overshares a bunch of shit. But Obi-Wan doesn't ever bring it up again because he probably just thinks he's lying. Which I don't know. I think it's weird because it's like the interactions with Dooku's had. I mean, Dooku's a villain, sure. But it's like the interactions he's had with Obi-Wan, he's never really like deliberately just lied to him. Because if anything, it's like Dooku, at least pre-Stover characterization, Dooku is a very much reasonable man. And if anything, I would think he'd want to tell Obi-Wan the truth in hopes of getting him on his side. I mean, that's kind of what he did in Attack of the Clones, that he was trying to convince him that he's fighting for the wrong cause, and the CIS are against corruption in the Republic. He's trying to like make him open his eyes. So I don't know. I don't think. I think it's just kind of weird for Obi-Wan to assume he's lying, Labyrinth of Evil. But when we read it, we may come up with something different. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you take the worst case scenario, right, that the Republic thinks some enemy out there created this army, but luckily they got control of the army before that could happen and disaster strike. But if you think about it, like the Confederacy of Independent Systems, they have a big military backing, right? The major corporations of the galaxy provide weaponry to them, mainly in droids and starships and that. So it's like they have to think, well, if somebody in the Separatists created this army when they already have an existing army, what's the point of that? Is it just to, get even larger numbers and just, improve their odds of taking over the galaxy? That would be their only suspicion, I think, is that, like, if they already have an army, why would they need another one? Or maybe they don't think it's the Separatists at all. Maybe they think, the Sith are in league somewhere else there. It's hard to say.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, if a lot of these revelations didn't even come until Labyrinth of Evil, it makes sense why the Jedi didn't really think of it much. At least, like I said, at least in the Multimedia Project. TCW, of course, not only contradicts the EU, but it creates a lot more problems because of how early they learn of Dooku's involvement. So,
well, I thought that the TCW, I thought season 6 that is in late 20 BBY. At least per like the canon timeline, like that, it's like late 20 BBY.
Let me
It's
see
hard to
here.
say when TCW,
Let me look this up.
like, especially in relation to other things like this. It's
Well, that's why I'm just saying, like, using their official timeline that, like, the Hidalgo's pooped out. Like,
Mhm.
I think season 6 is set in very early 19 BBY or late 20 BBY.
Season 6 Clone Wars. I'm looking it up on the Wookiee right now. Takes place 19 BBY
Yep, there you go.
in canon. Well, that's
Yep.
canon. I don't know what it is in the EU.
Well, it's probably the same thing in the EU. It's like, I mean, I wouldn't imagine they would change the dates for it. They rarely
I
do.
mean, they changed it for Christophsis, so I mean, why
I
wouldn't
mean
they
that.
for this?
That is true. Yeah, but that's like I said. It's like they rarely do they just overhaul, just change it the years though it takes place.
See, I guess I see the way I've seen TCW. I mean, I've always seen it as, I mean, for me, from the first season to season 6, it seems like it just takes place in like a year span. It does not seem like 3 years at all, because I get Ahsoka changed physically a lot, but Anakin and Obi-Wan will look pretty much the same, save for their armor or their outfit rather. So I don't know.
I mean, Anakin's hair is a
But
little bit longer, just a little
yeah,
tiny bit.
that's what I'm saying. Like it would be different if he had like his season 7 appearance by the time of like season 5, but he doesn't. He still has more so his season 1 to 2 appearance. His hair just seems too short, is what I'm saying. So that's why it always does not seem as long as what it actually was,
Mhm.
because the characters don't, because I mean, you can age a lot in a span of 3 years, especially if you're going through a war, and especially if you're like Anakin, who is a young man. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
Well, you
why
gotta think of
that's why it's always seemed weird.
well, you gotta think
I-
of the technological advancements too. It's like Phase 2 armor came into commission at 20 BBY. That's the timeline for TCW, and the Phase 2 armor comes in, I think, season 3, like mid season 3. So it's like, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that the show's its sense of time, I don't think it's as bad. I just think that since the show is like lacking a lot of major battles, it could seem like it doesn't take like place in like a long time.
It would make sense that season 6, no matter where you place it, since it's the end of TCW, it's towards the end of TCW.
Right.
It would be towards the end of the Clone Wars.
Right.
In the timeline, that just makes sense. And now,
Right,
in terms of why like Anakin looks the way he does, basically the same throughout that 3-year period, I think they started out thinking that this would tie into the multimedia project of some way,
Right.
because he has a scar. They do all that extra stuff. They have a Sage Ventress and that, and then that idea was pretty much abandoned, as they kept doing it and added more and more seasons. So I don't think that was pre-planned or anything. That was just how it naturally kind of just went on, bad decisions and all.
Yeah, and I mean, you could tell it was supposed to be like a spiritual successor to the micro series. I mean, look at the way Dooku's designed. I mean, the same pointy
all their designs
beard.
are kind of like Harold too.
That's true, and it had a lot of the same voice actors in it, like James Arnold Taylor, and I don't know. The sense of I mean, for me, the sense of time in that series, even in Disney canon, is weird, because I mean, in the EU, Christophsis is 7 weeks after the freaking war begins. In the new canon, which makes a little bit more sense, they say it's months into the war. But I don't know. That could be a whole different video, honestly. Just clone TCW. But anyway, back to the Tyrannus stuff. I think it makes a lot more sense, or than what I originally thought it did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, do y'all have any? I don't have any extra thoughts. I think the book sucked. I mean, they had a plot hole in it that kind of ruined the book for me. So, do you guys have any extra thoughts that y'all would like to add?
I'd say I think the book has its moments, what I liked, but overall it's just poop.
Yeah, I just say in terms of writing style, like I don't like how he has choppy sentences in the beginning, and in the non-action parts of the book. It's kind of annoying. But in terms of when they do get into the battle scenes and the fight scenes, it works because it makes things a lot more clearer. Like all the actions are like their own sentences. He doesn't say like he swung the lightsaber at, the super battle droid and this happened, like a lot of the other Clone Wars literature does in the EU. So I do kind of appreciate that. It's kind of annoying when you don't have an action scene. The bulk of this book does not have action, unfortunately, but it does work for the fight scenes.
Yep. Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the fight scenes were pretty good.
They were very good, I'd say.
I do have one thought. It's not related to the book though. It's kind of related to the Tyrannus conversation. Well, not a Tyrannus, it's a TCW reference. It's like I find it odd that seasons 3, 4, and 5, they're all set in 20 BBY, but it's like they're all scrunched in that one timeline. When like seasons 1 and 2 is like a year jump each, so it doesn't really fucking make sense in my opinion. They have like 3 whole seasons just scrunched into like 1 year. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with
Yep.
you there. It's just weird. You have 3 seasons worth of shit happening. It's all supposed to be in 1 year, and then you include season 7 is more, I'd say, the last like weeks of the war, as far as I'm aware. I don't know the timeline.
Well, it would have
for
made a
that.
little bit more sense, and I think if they took, I mean, you have 6 seasons. Again, this is just EU here. Of course, there's the 7th one in Disney canon, but you got 6 seasons. Why not just say, okay, the first 2 happen? I mean, that would still not really work because it would scrunch everything up. But the first 2 seasons, that's the first year. Second 2 is the second year, and the last 2 is the third year. But again, that scrunches everything up, probably even worse. Actually,
It does scrunch everything.
That's literally what they did though, Lance. That's what I'm saying. It's like season 1 is year 1, season 2 is year 2. I'm saying that season 3, 4, and 5 consists of year 3, but it doesn't really make any sense.
yeah, that's true.
The other thing with the last 3 seasons being the last year of the war is like some of those seasons there aren't really any major battles. It's just shit, nothing really fucking happens. It's like what the fuck are like they doing? There's like a ceasefire going on.
Well, there's not a whole lot of major battles going on unless like Sakura and Umbara, but I do think it's just kind of weird to say like because it's like a formula, like season 1 and 2 follow a year time jump each. So why does the next seasons not follow that? And of course they can't follow it because there is only I guess there's 3 years in the Clone Wars and a 0 year leading up to the first year mark. I mean, it depends how you count it, but
Yeah.
to do that would mean that you'd only have 3 or 4 seasons in TCW. But since that's not the fate, so they kind of have to scrunch 3 seasons worth into 1 fucking year.
Yeah, I know it's kind of weird, but I do get that, and I don't think TCW. I mean, they already had the 6 seasons, but again, I feel like 4 could have worked. A lot of the plot points that have like nothing to do with the actual war itself just should have been dropped entirely. It's all just fucking Dave Filoni handing out goddamn life lessons, and then fucking Maul
drama, the Maul
fucking
drama.
Maul. God, that didn't need to be part of the war. It could have just had that be its own series. Like what Filoni? What are you doing? Make that like we're getting the whole Maul series, but the whole plot should have been its own fucking thing.
It definitely went off base, but we should return to Atlantis. Oh, well, you were saying Lance? My bad.
I was gonna say in this timeline we scrunched up the whole series in the last 6 months of the war, so I guess we're not much better.
I mean, I had to, bro, because it's like, the EU comes first. EU comes first.
That's true, and I mean it's really the only way to make it make sense. Anyway, I think that's all we've got for this. With lots of TCW talk in this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, me and Ken got something to say about them descriptions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, go ahead then.
You want to go first, Titus?
No, you can go first, Ken.
Okay, I think the Clone Wars Battlegrounds. The whole big spiel I have at that is like the Separatists using fucking. It's like this goes back to my whole like gripe. The Star Wars militaries have an over reliance on super weapons. The Empire's God knows how many the Empire have in the fucking EU. You got the goddamn Galaxy Gun, the World Devastators, the fucking Sun Crusher, both Death Stars. I mean, like fucking hell. The Empire, I swear, they just spend more credits on fucking giant weapons of mass destruction than they do on their military. And to see the Separatists do the same thing, granted, I think the Separatists can kind of get away with it because they're literally run by corporations. They can just run, they can just throw money at the fucking wind. They can piss out fucking money. They're fucking goddamn corporations. They have a shitload of money. So like they can kind of get away with it, but it's still stupid for practical. You're not gonna just make like a new line of battle droids. But no, we gotta make these like fucking Devastator like bullshit like super weapon things that are just dumb. And they're being used by a character who's basically just like CIS Thrawn. CIS female Thrawn. That's kind of what Severance Tan is. Thrawn, but like Thrawn's force sensitive, kind of. I mean, she doesn't really actively go onto the battlefield and use her lightsaber all that much, but I mean, still makes her an interesting character. And also the way she disciplines, like, I mean, this is, I guess, more of her backstory, like her being part of the Chiss, like, defense force. The way she's like just a disciplinarian and how she like treats her soldiers, that's also very interesting. But I think that was more so Chiss culture than anything else. But Severance Tan, I think, should have been more of a character. Oh, Tidus, did you mention, like, I remember we talked about like this before, but was she like supposed to be a stopgap for Grievous, or like she wasn't intended to be anything more than what she was?
When you say stopgap, like, what do you mean?
She was just there to like exist, and then she dies, and Grievous takes over.
The sources on there are conflicting because you got to remember, like, Severance existed before Grievous.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to answer the question the best I can. They're not really referenced in the same like sources at all, outside like Abel G. Pena's, I think it was Lord of War, his article on Grievous.
Mm-hmm.
And he mostly just says that he believes that Severance Tan held the title of Supreme Commander of Droid Armies before Grievous, but she never explains the reason why she held that title while Grievous was, so active. Or not active, okay. But Grievous was like, he was around, he was on Geonosis, like he was just chilling.
Yeah.
So the best way I can answer that is really just, I don't know. I mean, I guess Grievous just had not proved himself yet, because I mean that's the whole point of the Rogue Gallery short story we're gonna get to soon, where he proves himself. I'm not gonna get too deep into that now, but I guess that's the only way to answer the question. It's like I don't really know, Ken. It's just kind of it's nebulous,
Yeah, it's a very tricky question to answer. But I think that she was just the acting Supreme Commander of the Separatist forces, and then she dies, and Grievous is next in line.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think Dooku foresaw like her dying like so fucking quick. But what's up, Scott?
I was gonna say, for someone who played Galactic Battlegrounds clone campaigns, like the Decimator project, that's a focal point. It's a major part of the game. Same for Severance Tan. It's like she was developed specifically for the game, and then this was so early on, 2002. We're talking about that. As the EU developed, they tried to integrate these explanations as to, okay, who was the leader of the Separatist army at this point? Was Severance Tan a stopgap for Grievous? Like this was added in later, based upon existing material that they wanted to make the most of, and that's why you have these rogues galleries and extra information like this, because they wanted to tie everything together in the best way possible to make sure like everything counts, everything gets the most value out of it. So in a lot of ways they kind of made more out of it than it really was.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, I don't even know, man, because like I was telling Ken, like there's no real clear bridge between Severance and Grievous, and like the Rogue Gallery story it's a story about how Grievous becomes Supreme Commander, but never once is like Severance like breathed a name. It's like Severance is never mentioned in the actual story. She's only referencing like guidebooks and articles. It's like she's really not like a character in the multimedia project. It's kind of weird.
Right, and she shouldn't really be because she was never designed to. Like, this is the video game character. I know, like, people thought she was cool, and Ken said, like, you know, he would have liked to see more of her.
Yeah.
But it was really something that existed specifically for the game, and then they brought up later for other sources to say, oh yeah, you remember this thing from same thing for the Game Boy Advance game or whatever, that Dooku, it's a doppelganger of him getting killed, and then they have that explanation in some of the novels like Yoda Dark Rendezvous later on.
Yep.
But I think overall,
go on, Ken.
I was gonna say overall, like what Scott said, it's like in retrospect, it's just there. Like they have to explain, like, oh, it's just a character there for the game. Because the games, it's just the games are like always doing their own thing in terms of continuity and like the overall media. I feel.
I mean, yeah, but, games are always like a nebulous part of the EU and how they connect to like the wider stories. But I kind of do wish that some guy, because I mean, Abel G. Pena, he really could have explained what the fuck was the actual point of her being Branding Commander opposed to Grievous, because they're both on Geonosis at the exact same time. It's like Severance Khan killed a few Jedi on Geonosis, Grievous killed some Jedi on in the Catacombs of Geonosis. Like they're both around at the same time. They had to have met. They've had to at least cross paths once. I don't believe they haven't.
I guess like Dooku just heard of her like killing Jedi and like their force sensitivity and whatnot, and he's like, "Oh, okay, like I'll make you Supreme Commander for now."
Well, I mean, like he sent her out to because you know how Dooku escapes on his little, what is it called, the bike? You know, the little speeder bike in the type
the speeder bike.
It was like soaring. He's going to his little what do you call it? Like the little
hangar, the hideout.
The hangar. He goes to the little hideout hangar. Like in the game, he sends out Severance Khan to guard him while he gets on his speeder to head out to his hangar.
Okay.
And as she's guarding him, she ends up killing the apprentice of Ishu Shinjan, who is the Jedi protagonist of Clone Campaigns.
Yeah, I remember you told me that he kills his Padawan, but I guess in that scenario, Dooku like I guess saw them fight or something, and then was like, maybe she has the potential or something. I don't know.
And Ichu Shenjan, he was in the original Galactic Battlegrounds, and he showed up again for the sequel. So it was just a character that they used again, you know, because why create a new one, right? When you have one that would fit.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. Just more efficient to have that character and use them again and make up a new one for the DLC.
Right. But there's just a lot of parts like Severance Khan just like conflict with like what we know now. Like I told you before, Ken, it's like in her biography, she says that out of all the dark acolytes, I mean, of course, she was around before Ventress, but it's still a little bit jarring to read. It says that she is like the peer of Dooku. Like she is the one dark acolyte that is most respected and most well regarded by Dooku.
Yeah, and
it's weird because odd. Like, I mean, it's odd because like you would notice to be Ventress like when that character comes around.
Or Kamari Vosa.
Yeah,
unfortunately she dies, but you know, there's a lot of people with similar background.
There's just a lot of like fill in the blank stuff with Severance 10 as to like why Dooku would respect her that much, like more so than Ventress, and that's again she's relegated to being this video game character in a vacuum that serves her purpose and dies.
I mean,
so I guess we'll never know.
Huh? I mean, we don't know like fleshed out way. We probably will never know. But they do just say in the biography that he admires like her brain, like her wits. He thinks that like, because I mean, Dooku's a smart guy himself. Like the biography says like she can match his wits, like she can match the Count's wits. So that's why he respects her.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I mentioned like Severance 10 could have been this Clone Wars version of Thrawn with a lightsaber and some force sensitivity.
Right. But is that all your thoughts for Battleground Skin?
The other thing, I guess Scott mentioned this, is that the whole Decimator stuff happening so early on. I don't know why the CIS is resorting to super weapons like this early on in the war. We're a month in, and you're already pissing away money using these fucking super weapons. That just kind of annoys me. Like, you have all these battle droids. Like, what the fuck was the point? Like, you have all these foundries on Geonosis, and you just like piss fucking money away and make these super weapons. Like, come on, you have all the droids for a reason. Why not use them? But I guess the CIS's doctrine, I guess, is just a terror doctrine.
Well, if you want a lore reason from poop, you could say, in Death of the Catacombs, you remember a lot of those factories are compromised by the Republic, so it's not really like they can do anything with Geonosis.
Yeah, they have to go make a new foundry somewhere else.
Yep, and that's ironically what Raxus Prime was. At first, Raxus Prime was their capital and factory planet for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say though about the Clone Wars game itself. This is like the last thing I'll have to add to the stream. Is that the ending of it always stuck with me. I wanted to replay the game before the stream, but I just never got a chance to. The ending is that, of course, Ulic killed Droma. The ghost of Ulic killed Droma. I still really like Ulic killed Droma being a Force ghost. I don't want to really get into that, but I don't like the idea of it. And he helps Anakin defeat the Dark Reaper by telling him how to somehow shield the ability of getting the Force stripped away from your body. I don't know how the fuck Ulic would know that, but I mean, at this point, anything flies. And I think what sticks with me the most is that Ulic was trying to actually help Anakin, but when he destroys the Dark Reaper, the game kind of says that Ulic unintentionally led Anakin deeper down the dark side because Anakin kind of got an ego spike from being helped by a legendary Jedi and destroying a super weapon which would have torn the whole Republic apart.
Mm-hmm.
So, although Ulic was trying to help Anakin and prevent him from going down the same path, he inadvertently did so anyway. Like, he made him get, not literally fall to the dark side, but he set a stepping stone in the road to fall to the dark side.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, I guess Anakin became known as the hero with no fear. That even boosted his ego even more, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can get to that. We can talk about that in another video, the hero with no fear. But I don't know. I just think that's like a really bittersweet ending. It's like, I mean, a big ass battle is won, but it's kind of like for Anakin's sake, it's like it's not really like it's a hollow victory more than anything, because this is just adding to his ego. It's like it's not really helping him.
Mm-hmm. Very bittersweet ending to things.
But that's it.
I think the thing I'll add to like the Clone Wars 2003 stuff was the whole planet Thule where they find the super weapon, and it's kind of like I referenced it from the chat before we streamed, but like the Germans and the Thule Society were like practicing like black magic and stuff. It's like kind of a parallel, IRL parallel. Like, the Germans were always into that paranormal shit, like raising the dead or whatever, like fucking around, finding out. And like, it's crazy. It equals crazy. And the Sith, I'm sure, the ancient Sith were just as fucking crazy, doing weird rituals and shit. And Force Harvester is no different, just sucking the life from Force sensitives. And like, it's a cool parallel, I think. If it's not like intentional, I don't think it was intentional. I just found they named this planet Thule, and then you like correlate that with the secret Nazi society of like people who are obsessed with the paranormal. So I thought that was a cool reference.
That's a good point for sure.
But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Well, I think is there any other thoughts that you guys would like to give on anything?
No, I'm good. I think I've got everything that I wanted to say.
Yep. Ready for the next episode.
Yep, so next time we are going to do Boba Fett Mesa Deception and Star Wars Tales number 14. And then once we're done with that, we finally can get to the comics. So,
yay!
Can't wait for all that. Finally, we'll hopefully get into some good stories. Hopefully.
About time!
I think so. Camino arc is going to be a banger for sure.
I'm sure those comics are great. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you, Scott, for being our special guest. Who knows? He might come back. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll be on the next episode.
I'm sure we'll get
But,
more special guests, hopefully.
Hopefully, I've invited a
One
few
Drake
people.
Plab, maybe.
Maybe Drake Platt. That would be great. He has a lot of this stuff, so he needs to join us. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. May the force be with you all, and long live the expanded universe.